It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You could find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you contact me through oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. Updated the Patreon. Let's see. Take a good look here. What's going on at Patreon? 8 o'clock kind of snuck up on me tonight. I'll be honest with you. Okay. I didn't realize it was 8 o'clock until about 5 seconds ago. Well, no, I got, we had the commercials in the intro. But about 5 seconds before that. And unfortunately, I'm sick again. I know, listen, a lot of people complain. Oh, yeah, Joey's complaining about being sick. I've been sick the past Fridays, the past month of Fridays easily. First was that pounding upstairs to my headache, but then like a fever and a headache every week. And I've been sick every night this week. I've been throwing up every night. Like I'll eat dinner and lie down and I'll be throwing up a couple hours later. So, I don't want to be sick. I'm sorry. I don't want to be sick. Okay, in Patreon, we had that fellow come back, Voss Judge. And he's the guy who says nuclear weapons aren't real and that we've never been to the moon. And his latest book is Oppenheimer's Deadly Toys, The Nuclear Weapons Hoax, Hidden Agendas. Had him come back. Okay. We just put that up tonight. No comments on it yet. That's in the Patreon. All the cool kids are in the Opperman Report Patreon. I can tell you that for sure. They get the best comments. I respond to all their comments. If you send me a message on there, I'll reply to you. That's how you get a hold. That's the secret way to get a hold of Ed Opperman. Become a Patreon. Jeremy Kuzmarov, warmonger, how Clinton's malign foreign policy launched the U.S. trajectory from Bush 2 to Biden. Horrible title, but a great interview. We talked about Clinton's CIA background and history, me in Arkansas. I get into a lot of good stuff in there. Then some repeats, an old repeat with this guy, Ramsey Dennison, What Happens in Vegas, the movie police couldn't erase. This fellow comes to Las Vegas, and he and his buddies are walking through a parking lot of a strip club. And they see these cops beating the crap out of this guy. So what this genius decides to do is call 911. Okay. So the same cops that are beating up this guy in the street come over and beat the crap out of him. And so I had him come on the show. And, I was polite to him during the interview. But everyone in the chat room was saying, oh, my God, what an idiot. Why would you call the cops to come to your scene to get beat up, too? And, I couldn't help but agree with them. And he got all upset with me. He complained to YouTube and had the show taken down. Oh, my God. I hate this business. I hate this job. Okay, what else here? Richard Otto. Paradox of our national security complex, how secrecy and security diminish our liberty and threaten our democratic republic. Had him on. Had a very polite discussion. Marianne Petrie, dismantling family court corruption. Then a repeat. Jason Burmis from Loose Change, had him on years ago. Ian Totten on the West Memphis 3. We had him come back from the Deathcast podcast. Mr. Ian Totten. And Corpse Creek Publishing, I think it is. You check out, he posted a lot of books on true crime, good stuff. East Palestine, the Unity Council for East Palestine Train Derailment. Breaking news, Marianne Trump-Berry, Trump's older sister, dies at 86, and I have a show where we talked about her and how she wrote a letter in support of Trump's drug smuggling helicopter pilot. I'll tell you a story about that real quick. Armand Della Croce, who was Della Croce, Neil Della Croce, he's called him, Mr. O'Neill. Aniello Della Croce was the godfather at one point. Underboss for Paul Castellano. His attorney was Barry Slotnick. And I met his son, Armand Della Croce. Many people suspect he was involved in the assassination of Paul Castellano, an unnamed shooter. was the word. I hate to. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. Just, but oh my God! You know what? Cut that out. Let's delete all of that. I don't know anything about that story. But supposedly one time, no, it was in the papers. This part was in the papers. He was on the helicopter from Atlantic City back to New York, and he pulled out a fully automatic Uzi machine gun. Let him go. No problems. Nothing to see here. Okay, a show about Abu Ghraib and the American Empire. Opperman Live. Is Trump a Fugazi sovereign citizen? Opperman Live, do your research. I had a guy tell me this week, man, right? I'm telling him about a telephone conversation I had off the air. And this guy's trying to tell me, because he's an expert on true crime and all these other things. He's trying to tell me what happened during my telephone conversation. Insane. The world's gone crazy. And I'm leading the pack. Okay, bunch of good stuff here. A lot of it's old. Opperman Patreon exclusive, the story of Mel's Hole on Art Bell. The people that have heard that have given it really good praise, the reviews. Tonight we're having Mr. Quinn Mitchell into the tussle, this 15-year-old kid who's working on the campaign up there in New Hampshire as a reporter, podcaster. Got kicked out by the Ron DeSantis goons, the high-heeled goons. Tonight will be Matt Sergio, also known as Matt Conspiro, about the the Bloomsbury. And I hate I forget what that thing's called. Bloomsbury Chronicles, with this little town in England where it's a lot of Dave McGowan type stuff. Okay, like weird scenes in Bloomsbury. Who was up there? That guy. One of the Beatniks guys with Allen Ginsberg. William Burroughs lived there for a while, and all Tavistock folks and all kind of weird stuff. So that was a good show. I had him on twice. I had him on 2 days in a row, which is so rare. So it's a 2-part show tonight. I don't know if people like me playing 2-part shows on the same night. I did that with William Dorsch last week, the John Wayne Gacy stuff, which is exclusive stuff, which I've gotten so much response to that show. A little less response would be nice, guys. Okay, I don't need all this. Yeah, and, please, one thing too, man, if you're listening to the show, okay, fine. If you're a podcaster or you got a YouTube channel or something like that, and you enjoyed the Opperman Report for the past 10 years, you've enjoyed the show, and now you're out there and you're doing a show, your stuff there about the same topics. Great, man. I'm happy for you, but you don't need to send me all your stuff and instant message it to me, links to your show and stuff like that. You don't need to do that, man. I don't have time to listen to all this stuff. I don't like to color my instincts or intuition going into an interview and going to a topic. I like to go in there fresh with my own thoughts without anybody else's who knows what kind of molding my opinions or my thoughts. So please, let's back up on that. Interviewed yesterday with Roger Rappaport about a brand new book. It's not even in the ink's not dry yet, and I'm holding it right now, wiping the ink. Searching for Patty Hearst, a true crime novel. Now, Mr. Rappaport lived with Stephen Weed, who was Patty Hearst's boyfriend. He's well aware of this show and the coverage we've done on the Patty Hearst story. So he was excited to come on the show. I think he knows some good information. I think it's a good interview, that's for sure. I'm very, very proud of the interviews I've been doing lately, guys. It's all good quality stuff. If I put, I got to do crap every now and then. I got to do crap. What are you going to do? I got to fill time, right? Speaking of which, I'm going to be playing that show with the Antarctica firefighter. I'm going to be playing that during this week. It's a brand new show, but it's not. I can't put it on the stations, and it's not up to snuff for a Friday night show. But I'll play it during the week when I play the repeats. But it'll be new content, so keep an eye out for that. Okay. Tape today with this fellow. Let's see if I could. Oh, here it is. Dr. Anthony Feinstein. And the book is called Moral Courage, 19 Profiles of Investigative Journalists. Dr. Feinstein is like a neuropsychiatrist, and his specialty is MS. But he was in war. He had to fight in a war for South Africa as a young man. And since then, he's done these books about the trauma caused by journalists in war. What are some of these books? Here, let me pull them up for you. Shooting War, Journalists Under Fire, The Psychological Hazards of Covering War, Battle Scarred, Hidden Cost of Border War. And this book here, it's about 19 journalists, investigative journalists, and what causes them and motivates them to have this moral courage to go out and do this kind of reporting against all odds, against all opposition, and the trauma it causes, the PTSD it causes, the substance abuse causes, the sacrifice of relationships it causes, the government harassment, intimidation, stalking, all that kind of stuff. And mostly his focus is on Eastern Bloc, you might call them, Afghanistan, Russia, Hungary, all these kind of places. But I got him to talk about, too, the U.S. and capitalist oppression of independent reporters, too, as well. Very proud of this interview. Love this interview myself. I would encourage anybody to run out and buy this book, Moral Courage, 19 Profiles of Investigative Journalists. And if you look at the photographs of these 19 journalists and see the expression on their face, you'll see the same look on my face, okay? That look of trauma, paranoia, determination, and other things, same look that I see in the mirror when I wake up and have to look in the mirror every day. But at least I can do that. I can wake up and look at myself in the mirror every day. Got some good stuff coming up this week. I'm taping tomorrow. Oh, I had scheduled an interview for yesterday with Everett Stern about it. Turns out he's one of the whistleblowers who turned in that FBI agent that was just arrested and raided, that guy Buma, B-U-M-A. I don't know quite how to pronounce it, but we had to cancel at the last second. Then we had, let me say hi. And who's coming up on Saturday? Oh, Jamie Deluxe is coming back on Saturday. We're talking about some stuff. He posted some things about the rape of Laney James. So I saw that and I contacted him. We were chatting off the air, gossiping about certain things. And so I'm going to have him come back on Sunday. I'm taping with him. Got some big shows coming up. State of the Free Press in 2024. Zenith Man. Death, Love, and Redemption in a Georgia Courtroom. Dying for Capitalism, How Big Money Fuels Extinction and What We Can Do About It. Yeah, sure, we'll do something about that. And The Life We Chose, William Big Billy D'Elia. And The Last Secrets of America's Most Powerful Mafia Family. Yep. Okay. People were asking me, too, about, I mentioned last week that I had it wasn't a deposition, it was a settlement conference on Saturday, and it was largely based on my asset search that I had done of the defendants in the case. We did settle that case. It went far better than I could have hoped for the defendants. And this is in a kind of a case where I'm getting paid like for 8 hours, 10 hours on this job, plus the asset search. So it's not like a big payday for me. But the client's got a big payday. The attorney's got a big payday. Maybe I'll get a bonus. Maybe someone's listening and send me a bonus. Good old that offer, man, We'll really tip the scales on this thing, guys. If you're listening out there, I did sign an NDA, so I can't tell too many details. But I'll tell you this, man. I knew early on, when I saw the affidavit of financial condition that they had put forward, that I knew I was going to find stuff, okay? very often, especially in a situation where people are hiding assets, they're clever about it, and they'll create certain little trusts and corporations and things, and limited LLCs and DBAs. It's kind of like, to have you kind of hunting around, chasing wild goose chases, little bunny trails. Kind of like what you would do if, you wanted to assassinate the President of the United States. You would put forward a patsy. All clues lead to Lee Harvey Oswald. And then, case is closed. Boom, boom, boom. We got our killer. Don't look here anymore. Okay? Which is, what the kind of a plan for that kind of thing is. And people will do that when they're hiding assets. They'll do that. I do that, when I'm hiding certain online activity, where... Let's say, I don't want to get into too much detail, but if I'm doing something undercover and people want to look into that online persona I've created, I'll create it in such a way that if they do a little digging, they'll find the person. They'll find, I discovered this person. I identified who they are. Not thinking that it leads all the way back to a private investigator that's actually doing some work out here investigating people. Which brings me to a very funny story. Okay? Brings me to a very funny story. I was going to do Trump Gone Wild first, because it's been a wild week in the Trump litigation. But I tell you, it's been a rough week for me. But I did have a little bit of good news. Little fun achievement this week that I'm enjoying. And that I'm enjoying in my most cynical way of things that I enjoy. When I was a kid, right, back in Staten Island, I moved to Staten Island from the Bronx. When I moved to Staten Island, we used to go, I learned how to fish, and my friends would, we lived out in woods and ponds, and we were on an island. There was water all around us. So my friends would take me to fish, and I bought fishing poles and, hooks and stuff like that. And we went dig for worms, And I learned all the tricks about fishing and catching frogs and turtles and things like that. And then, they said, hey, Ed, we're going to go crabbing. And I said, oh, boy, that sounds great, crabbing. I wonder what that's like, And, I'm thinking, well, maybe like you run into the water, you grab the crabs, okay, with a net or something like, how do you go crabbing? I had no idea. I'm from the Bronx. And they showed me these crab traps, which were basically these cages, right? And what you do is you put some old stinky bait in there, like really rotten stuff. If you had a piece of rotten chicken or, or like an old frog, we would catch a frog and put it in there. Old piece of fish, maybe you caught a fish, it was sitting around for a couple of days. And you'd stick it inside the trap. And then you'd lower the trap into the water down there at the... Great Kills, but I forget what the beach was called down there. And I said, okay, well, now what? Well, we're going to come back in 3 or 4 hours. And I said, that's it? I said, what? There's no fun in that. There's no excitement in that. Why do we want to do this? But then, when you go back and you pull up the trap and there's actually some crabs like on the outside of the cage, and they're falling off, and you kind of got to scoop them up real quick, maybe you can grab one in the water. But you pull up this trap, there's 5 or 6 crab in there. That's great. You put them in a bucket, you drive home. We used to ride home on our bikes with a bucket full of water and crabs and fishing poles and crab traps strapped to our backs, and oh my God! What I tell you, man, there's no kid living like that today, man. I don't care where you live, even out here in Florida. And then we'd go home, we'd cook these crabs up, man, right away before they went bad. And eat up these crabs, man. It was great. And I remember that we were supposed to throw back. If the crab wasn't as big as your fist or your hand or something like that, you had to throw it back. But we kept those crabs, too. So, but I learned, how to catch. You set a trap to catch the crabs, right? And you got to be patient when you set a trap. And later on in life, when I went into the beeper business, I was out on bail still. No, my case was over. My marijuana smuggling case is over, but I was broke and I had no money. I had this really expensive condo I had to keep the payments up on. And I sold some stuff. I had one of those exercise bikes. I sold it for like $1,100, and I maxed out my credit cards, and I went to the beeper business to sell beepers and cell phones at a kiosk in a mall. Before I started doing that, I had gotten a job for a beeper company as a salesperson. a field salesperson, because how they would sell beepers back in those days is the beeper company would have these salesmen. They'd go out to businesses and doctors' offices, and they'd sign them up for the contract with leases, with insurance policies and leases on these beepers and stuff like that. And when I said, okay, I want to start my own beeper company and be a reseller where you buy the airtime, you resell it, you sell the beepers, and you charge people every month for the airtime. You pay a little bit. You don't have your own antennas. You purchase the airtime for, like, say, $5 a month. You sell it for $10 a month. And you keep what's left over. But I said, man, there got to be a better way of doing this than being a field salesperson and driving around trying to sell beepers, 2 or 3 at a time. And I was walking through the Staten Island Mall, and I saw them selling exercise equipment, and like it was a short-term pop-up stand where they were selling this exercise equipment, bicycles and treadmills and things like that. And I looked at the prices on it, and I said, well, this is going for $175. If they're able to sell this in the mall for $175, I could sell a beeper with a year's service contract for $175. And I figured I'd only need to sell 1 or 2 a year. So what I did was, I went and I bought the first guy in the country to do this, man, to build a kiosk in a mall, rent space in a mall, and sell beepers and cell phones from a mall. And then later on to sell the cases and the accessories and all that kind of stuff. No one was doing this before me. I was the first guy to do this. They came, took my picture. You'd think I'd be a multimillionaire, but no, I knew better than everybody else. So, I came up with this plan to get the beeper customers to come to me. It's a very, very successful company to the point where I could buy out. I was putting my competition out of business, and I'd buy out their companies and just take over their debt and then negotiate with the companies they owed debt to for a fraction of the money. Very successful business. So then, when I started getting into cyber stalking investigations and online defamation investigations and locating and identifying people online, auction fraud, that type of stuff, I said, well, I saw the way other people were doing this kind of stuff, tracing the IP address, and I said, I'm going to set a trap. I'm going to set a trap for these people. They're crabbing traps. Beeper company, people come to me. Now I'm going to set a trap to catch these cyber stalkers. Now, as you're much well aware, I've got really crazy people stalking me. Really crazy people. And many of these people think that they're researchers and they're real slick, online savvy guys, right? Okay, and that's just the kind of, these stalkers, that's how they think, man. And they're obsessed with this digging up information on people, okay? Much like you'll have the debaters, like let's say in the West Memphis 3 case, right? Where the people who think they're innocent, the supporters, and the non-supporters will debate back and forth as to their guilt or innocence. And it becomes a point where they think, well, if I have the case details memorized better than you, that must mean that I'm correct because I know more about the case than you do. And the same thing happens with these disturbed online stalkers where they need to obsessively obtain new information about a person constantly. So they're constantly Googling Ed Opperman this, Ed Opperman that. So if you set up a little trap, right? Where let's say, where does Ed Opperman park his car at night? And they Google that term, and it takes them to a little page or a site or whatever, okay, a profile, whatever. Who knows what it could be? It could be anything that Ed Opperman figures out, okay? But it's a trap. You lead them to a trap. using search terms that the average person's not going to search. The average person who's interested in me and the show is going to search Ed Opperman, Jeffrey Epstein, Ed Opperman, Dave McGowan, Ed Opperman, Donald Trump, that kind of stuff. What does Ed Opperman have to say about the West Memphis 3 case? Ed Opperman, West Memphis 3. That's normal searches that normal people are going to search. But people searching, okay, where does Ed Opperman park his car? Or where does Ed Opperman's so-and-so, who is Ed Opperman's ex-girlfriends, and weird things like that. You can easily set a trap for someone, okay? Now, you don't check this trap every day. That would be foolish, okay? You're not going to get a hit every day, okay? You just sit back and you wait. And, when I'm doing this kind of work, this is interesting, too, because I'm doing this kind of work for a client. At the onset of the investigation, they hire me. Okay, this is what I'm going to do for you. Okay, I'm going to set this trap for you, and then we're going to check it out. We're going to see when I get some information. I'm going to write a report. I'm going to send it back to you. Okay, and give me my retainer, and that's it. Then what will happen is that the client starts getting impatient. Well, I need an update. I need an update on this case. Okay, well, I'll go check. Well, there's still nothing there. Okay, it's only been 2 days. It's only been 3 days. There's still nothing there. But they're contacting me. I need an update. What's going on with this case? What's going on? Well, I told you I set a trap. And we're waiting now for them to fall into the trap. Trust me, they will. I do this all the time. And then, finally, okay, now, guess what? You've burned up the money in your retainer. Now I need more money. Okay? If you want me to keep working on this, because I'm not even going to check that trap anymore for you. How's that? Oh, Ed Opperman did nothing for me. I hired him. He didn't do anything. Oh, I never heard back from him. Okay. So just this week, I go and check one of my little traps. I go and check one of my little traps. And what do I see? I see this interesting screen name attached to one of my traps. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Okay, good. We got a hit. Okay, clearly this is someone's obsessed with me. And clearly this is they created this name to get more information on me. So I said, well, this name looks like it could be the name of an Instagram account. Let me go to Instagram and check it out. So I go to Instagram, I put the name in there. There's nothing there. Okay, it doesn't come up. Okay, well, let me just Google the name, right? I Google the name. I know, by the way, I know exactly who this is. Okay, I know exactly who this person is. And you would know too. Okay, so when this all comes out and I tell you their name and this all comes out within whatever litigation or criminal proceedings take place, okay, you're going to recognize the name. I Google the name and one of the first thing that comes up is gloryholes.com. Now, if you don't know what a glory hole is, okay, you can look it up. But basically, what a glory hole is men, okay, really creepy, smelly, disgusting men, perverted men, like most men are, will do this thing. And this guy claims he's bisexual, and I do believe he's bisexual. So homosexual men or bisexual men will have these locations, usually in rest stops, highway rest stops, park rest stops, sometimes even like a gas station bathroom, which I believe this is the location in this case. Oh, I hate to spoil it for you. I guess you had something to do tomorrow morning, right? But now you can't do it. Because I know you go there in the mornings too. Okay. And what they do is they'll go to this location and there's a hole. Okay, a hole in the wall, and on one side of the hole there's a guy on his knees, and on the other side of the hole there's a man with his pants zipped down, and the hole is right about belt height. Okay, so use your imagination. What goes on in that hole? Okay. So I trace it, I just trace this screen name. Okay, and by the way, and I know there's ways to document okay, who this, that it goes back to the person I think it is. Okay, then to legally document like a fingerprint. Okay, so, and also too, it's in the small town where the guy lives. Okay, so that's even compounds it even more. We got this. Okay, we got this. So that was my little fun week this week. We got a big wow from the from the chat room on Spreaker. That's my week. What did you do this week? Oh, God. I know. So for me, I'd say you get a little pleasure from this kind of stuff. But just think, too, now, okay? When you got something like that, some kind of evidence like that, that's embarrassing information. So people don't want to go to court, either criminal court or civil court, if there's a lawsuit. They don't want to go to court and have their glory hole experiences exposed to the world. Because once it's in court, that's public record, man. You can put that all over the place. But anyway, that was my week. And I when the day it happened, it was just so funny. There's only a handful of people I can talk to about this kind of stuff. Unless one Friday night when I go on the radio talk to the audience about it. Oh, God. Okay, let's move on. But is that a funny story or what? I got for my notes, I have the actual screen name. I would love to say it out loud. And I would love to now, because I know right now there's like a chat room out there someplace, a Discord, a group chat, everybody who listens to this show to hate on Ed Opperman. Well, that's not me. That's not me. I can guarantee you that's not me. Okay. One of the biggest things that happened this week, Trump gone wild. One of the biggest things that happened this week was they leaked some proffer video of Jenna Ellis, Hall, the bounty hunter, the bail bondsman, and Sidney Powell. Okay? And they leaked their proffer videos. And Jenna Ellis, man, during her proffer, says in detail that Dan Scavino told her the boss is not going to leave the White House under any circumstances. We're just going to stay in power. So she knew this. She knew they were planning a coup that had nothing to do with the lawsuits or court or anything. She knew this back during the White House Christmas party in December. Now, if Dan Scavino, by the way, if you don't know, Dan Scavino used to be Trump's caddy on the golf course, okay? It was his golfing buddy. And he gets a job as the White House media person, right? The campaign media chairman. He's the one that used to write Trump's tweets and all that kind of stuff. Those crazy tweets we all talk about. That was Dan Scavino wrote that stuff. So if this guy and Jenna Ellis, they knew there was a coup in the works, you don't think 60%, 50% of the people in that room didn't know that they were plotting a coup to overthrow the government of the United States of America? What the hell is going on here, man? No wonder people are in glory holes. The world's got crazy. I should have named the show Glory Hole. Oh, God. Okay. But then it comes out, they leak these tapes, right? So I see this, and I say, oh, my goodness. So the prosecutor down there in Colorado, right away, she calls for an emergency hearing for a temporary restraining order or gag order type thing. And in her, she attaches an exhibit with an email chain where they blame it on Harrison Floyd. Now, he's one of the R. Kelly three. He's one of the three guys. He was the black guy who couldn't raise bail, and it was, the only one who couldn't get out on bail was the black guy, And he runs some kind of organization like Africans Americans for Trump or something like that. Not blacks for Trump, the guy that I interviewed, the guy who tried to cut off the guy's head with a dull machete from the Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult. Not him. But it might as well be. Because this guy's got his own stuff too, man. So right away when I heard this email exchange where his lawyer actually admitted to it and then said later on, oh, no, I'm sorry, that was a typo. I don't admit to it. During the hearing, who was it? This other attorney who worked for the county commissioner down there, the election commissioner, who's one of the other co-defendants. He fell on his sword and said it was me who leaked this video because I don't think it should be kept silent. I don't think it should be kept quiet. Honestly, I still think it was Harrison Ford, and I think it was Harrison Ford still. He's the most unstable in this bunch, which is a huge feat. Although I think the woman with him, who was R. Kelly's publicist, might be more unstable than him. The scheme he's involved in is the woman who was the R. Kelly publicist, who was R. Kelly's publicist at the time that R. Kelly had these little girls, 13, 14-year-old girls. So he was pissing on them, doing all kind of stuff, man, and keeping them in cages, in dog cages. This was in Trump Tower in Chicago, is where he was doing this. Okay, he was walking in and out of there with little 13-year-old girls. Okay, walking in and out of there with dog cages. Okay, you see on one of these documentaries where the kids' families go there. So my kid's up there, and Trump doorman, oh, you can't go up. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so she was working for R. Kelly during all that, and she didn't quit until the documentary came out. She quit the next day after, it was out in the public how bad things were. But up until then, she was fine and dandy with everything, man. And then the third guy was this former cop who's become some kind of a clergyman who was arrested in his clerical outfit there, his collar. And the three of them went to go threaten and intimidate a poll worker on police body cam. They met her at the police station, and with a cop standing right there, and on the camera, they threatened her. That's a guilty conviction, okay? I can promise you that, okay? So Harrison Ford, I predicted he would be the next one to flip, and that he monetized these videos, this evidence, because he's just about to flip anyway. We know he has money troubles. Couldn't afford a lawyer, couldn't afford bail. So I assumed it was him. The prosecutor also assumed it was him by attaching this email exchange where his lawyers said it was us. Later on, they said that was a typo. Okay, we'll take their word for it. I think they fell on their sword. Shortly after this, the prosecutor over there in Colorado comes out against Mr. Harrison Floyd and says, we want to revoke his bail because he's out there on social media saying all kind of crazy stuff, intimidating witnesses, continuing his activities. We feel that's a bail violation. There's going to be a hearing about that. Now, I think they want him back in jail because just like I think he's the next one to flip. Because it's all textbook 101, man. RICO case. Who's going to go next? It's like a bunch of guys sitting on a lifeboat, waiting for, who's going to fall asleep that we could push them off the boat. Okay, it's the same kind of thing where you got a bunch of co-defendants. You're looking around. Well, who's the weakest guy out here who's going to flip on us next? Everyone's watching this, and you can kind of figure out who it is. And the prosecution agrees with me, in my opinion, that it's going to be him. So there's that. Jenna Ellis, by the way, just came out with this article where she totally tears into Trump and Trump world and all this kinds of stuff and talks about him sleeping with porn stars. Really, pull that up, man. See if you could find that article. See if you could find it. Best Christian ever. It's in Mediaite. Best Christian ever. Ex-Trump lawyer goes scorched earth on former boss who screwed a porn star while his third wife was pregnant. So, and she really rips into him, man. Okay. Real quick, and I want to get into the whole thing about Miranda rights. That's another thing that drives me crazy. Okay? No glory at all. The guy out there with the glory hole, he's shaking in his boots. You can see the sweat beads coming off his head tonight as he listens to this live because he's so freaking obsessed with me. You became obsessed with the wrong guy, my friend. Let's try that. Okay? Your obsession would have been better off at your last sick obsession because this was the wrong one, man. Okay. I never read Me My Rights. Let's get into that and get out of here, and I'll play these Matt Sergio. He has that channel, Occult Beatles. I play sometimes on the Opperman Report channel there. Great stuff, real Dave McGowan type stuff. They never read me my rights. Oh, God, this drives me crazy. Going way back to the 70s when I was a youngster, They had a TV show called The Rookies, with these 3 young rookie cops. One was African American. They called them coloreds back then, or black. Okay. Another one was a married cop, married to a nurse. And then there was a young single bachelor cop, And it became routine in all police shows that as the cop was arresting someone and they're putting those cuffs on them, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you can say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And sometimes they even took it to a point. So now this is like standard in everybody's heads that they think that's what they need to recite as they're putting the handcuffs on you. But that's not what Miranda or Ernesto Arturo Miranda versus the state of Arizona, okay, which is what the Supreme Court case was. But everyone thinks that the cops have to read you your rights. They have to read you your rights as they're putting the cuffs on you, is what they think, because I've seen this on TV 10 million times. And they also think it's some kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card, okay, where so many times, I'm dealing with a brand-new client, and the first thing they'll say to me is, they never read me my rights. First, what kind of cases? It was a drug case. They caught me, selling drugs to a cop, but they never read me my rights. It's because they think it's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. That just because you were never read your rights, that's some kind of a big violation, that the cop broke the law. And he, by not reading you your rights, and by the way, your Miranda rights is most people think it's just your Fifth Amendment right, so the right against self-incrimination, that you don't have to testify against yourself. So it is your Fifth Amendment right, but it's also your Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. You have the right to counsel, you have the right to an attorney. So it's 2 constitutional rights. You have the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself, and you have the right to an attorney. I don't think I'm going to be able to get into everything I need to on Miranda tonight. But it just drives me crazy, because I hear this all the time. About a year ago, I was contacted by this family, and it's very common for people to contact a private investigator. Hey, Ed, the cops aren't doing their job. I got a problem with this neighbor. I had this crime against me, and the cops aren't doing anything about it. I need your help to get the cops to do something. And I can usually do my own little investigation and write it up in a certain way and present it to the cops, or present it straight to the district attorney's office, okay? The cops are just doing the investigation. You can present your case, citing case law, to the prosecutor, to the county attorney, to the city attorney, and they have their own investigators who will contact me later on and say, okay, doing a little interview with me. And many times they'll try and recreate my investigation, but often they'll just use my investigation, and they'll go out and issue the arrest warrant, okay? Just because the cops don't want to do anything about it doesn't mean you can't go straight to the DA. You can. Many times. In some jurisdictions, you can't. Family contacts me, Ed, we've got problems with these neighbors. We call the cops over and over and over again. They're not doing anything about it. Well, okay, fine. Let's write this up, okay, and we'll take it to the DA's office. Maybe we can get something happening. Well, Ed, we didn't tell you this part. What happened was the last time the cops did come out, instead of arresting our neighbors, they arrested my husband, but they never read him his rights. And I said, well, okay, what was he arrested for? Okay, well, trespassing, stalking, harassment. He was arrested for all these things. They think even a little bit of vandalism, too, wasn't thrown in. And I said, well, okay, well, it's very unlikely, that they're using his own statements against him. See, the only thing, when the police don't read you your rights, the only thing you benefit from that is that they can't use any self-incriminating statements against you at court. Unless you don't object to that. You have to file a motion stating that your Miranda rights were violated. You weren't read your rights. You have to file a motion with exhibits, all that kind of stuff before court starts, okay? And then you can exclude your self-incriminating statements as use in court. But it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card in any way, shape, or form. And in many cases, they don't need to read you your rights because they've got all the evidence already. They've got all the information they need. They don't care what you have to say, okay, because it's not any value to them. So, and your statements aren't going to be used. They have the evidence already. Now, so this woman's telling me, well, they never read him his rights, and when I call the police to complain about it, the lieutenant says, oh, that cop's going to be in trouble. Why don't you come down to the station and tell us all about it? Okay. And I says, whoa. I said, I'm out of here, man. Look, if your husband had not been arrested and has not, now he has an attorney representing him. Okay. If you want to hire me now, I got to speak to the attorney first. Okay. If your husband had not been arrested, I'd say, yeah, let's put together a case and present it to the cops. But now that there's an open case, the last thing we want to do is go back and talk to those cops because they're going to be taking anything you say and using it against you. They can't talk to your husband, period, because he's represented by an attorney. That would be a violation of his Sixth Amendment rights. I'm giving legal advice to this poor woman. Okay. Which I'm not really giving legal advice. I'm just explaining my experience, my previous experience. Okay. So she's arguing with me now. She says, oh, no. That the lieutenant told me that the cop is going to be in big trouble and I should come down and file a report. Okay, fine. I'm out of here. Okay. I talked to her about a year later. They did try and come up with charges against her. What I said to her stuck in her head, so she didn't incriminate herself while she was talking to this cop. But they did get a conviction against her husband. He finally had to plead guilty on his charges of this back and forth with the neighbors. That's very common in a situation like that. When you call the cops, you got a beef with your neighbors, you got a beef with an ex-wife, an ex-husband, these domestic disputes type stuff. The cops have a lot of discretion in who they can arrest. And if the cop shows up at the scene and he recognizes one of the people there, they're a friend of his, they're a relative, there's something like that, he's not going to come right in and say, oh, hey, how are you? They're going to pretend they don't know each other, and then things are not going to go your way. That stuff happens all the time. And people need to realize this, man. It's not like you see on TV. Now, the idea there are conditions to be Mirandized, to be read your rights. You have to be in some kind of custody or detention. Okay, it's only custody and detention. If you talk to the police before you're in custody or detention, and let's say it's a situation where you're accused of brandishing a weapon or firing a weapon, you get pulled over, right? But before you get pulled over, you throw the weapon out the window. And the cop says to you, look, man, we don't want some kid to pick up this gun. Just tell us where it is, okay? You tell them where it is. The cops go back and pick up the gun. Now, they can't use in court, hey, he told me that's where the gun was. They can say, well, we discovered the gun. And when we discovered the gun, his DNA is on there, his fingerprints are on there, we traced the gun back to him. They can still use that evidence even though you weren't read your rights. Another thing, too, that you can do is, let's say you first get arrested, you're sitting in jail, you're sitting there in the detention. I've been put in there in the general circulation with the other inmates. They can put an undercover cop in there in your cell with you. Hey, what? Oh, my God, I don't know. The cop will start saying, I don't know what to do. I don't have a lawyer. They never read me my rights. They never read me my rights either. Well, they got to let us go, right? Because they never read us our rights. Well, what are you in for? If you go confessing your guts onto that undercover cop, even though he's never read you your rights, that's, again, because the whole thing about Miranda, Ernesto Arturo Miranda against the state of Arizona, that Supreme Court case. And by the way, Miranda was no nice guy, man. Miranda was a rapist. Miranda was a burglar. Other thing, like I think arson too. This guy was a bad guy, man. He did time. This guy deserved to go do time. What happened was, and was just to show you, the original application of Ernesto Miranda against the state of Arizona was that a relative of his went in and talked to him while he was in custody and then went back to the police and told the police what he said while he was in custody. The elements here are you have to be in custody, okay? And once you're in custody and they want to question you, they got to notify you and educate you what your rights are. Now, once they're talking to you about your rights, you immediately say, no, I don't understand. Yes, I want a lawyer. I don't understand what you're saying to me. A lot of times they'll try and tell you, well, what am I being charged with? Well, we can't tell you because you just told us that you don't want to talk to us, that you want an attorney. BS, man. They're gonna, when you get to the jail, they're gonna tell you what your charges are. Okay, they know what your charges are. They can tell you what your charges are. They're negotiating with you, and they're offering a benefit to you to get you to give up your rights. Never give up your rights. Never speak without an attorney. I don't care what you think. You're smarter than, or you're 100% innocent. Sometimes you even go in there to make a complaint. You're making a complaint. You're filing a police report against somebody else. And they start reading you your rights. No way, man. I don't understand that. Okay, let's wait till I have an attorney. Then I'll make my complaint. Okay? Because I'm not going to give you something to use against me. I've never seen this in person, but I've seen this like on this YouTube confession, stuff like that. In some places, when you go in there, I think it's, I don't want to say, but with some places you go in there, they start swearing you in. Do you swear to tell the truth? Bull! BS, man. No way do I swear. I'm not giving you a sworn statement under any conditions like this. Even we're going to file a complaint, I'll write out the complaint, and then I'll swear to it. You're not going to ask me questions. I'm going to swear to you under oath. I'm going to tell you the truth. That's a perjury trap. Or we'll discuss this. I'll go home, I'll write up an affidavit, and I'll have it notarized, and I'll bring it down to you. How's that? You want me to swear to something, I'll do that. But no way, man, am I swearing to something in an interrogation room, swearing in and to give sworn testimony. Oh, that's crazy. I didn't do a good job explaining Miranda. Maybe I'll do a full 1 hour show on that, and I'll put it in Patreon to really explain to people. But the bottom line is, first of all, not being read your rights is not a get out of jail free card. Okay, it's not the cop didn't break a law or break a rule or break a policy by not reading you your rights. If they do read you your rights, then you keep quiet. You don't say nothing. Okay, under no circumstances. Now, coming up after this will be Matt Sergio about the Bloomsbury Chronicles, a 2-part episode about the Dave McGowan type weird scene stuff going on over there in this little town in England. Guys, thank you so much, and keep an eye on those glory holes. Okay, well, next time you go to the men's room, look around for one of those holes, because I know where there's one. All right, guys, good night.